Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I am your host, Kimberly Cloud. God bless America. Today, I'm going to sit up there and introduce a special guest. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I can't even start this off right. How about yes, ma'am? We'll start this in the right way. Yes, I'm Victor Bredding. We own a ranch down in Texas called the Bredding Texan Ranch or B-Tex Ranch, and I'm here to hopefully share my story and maybe a little inspiration for your audience.
Well, I just wanted to start off by thanking you for that. I also wanted to ask you, can you tell me so much about your past leading up into your present?
Yes, ma'am. So I was raised by a dad. The book is going to talk about an unpresent dad, and it's really kind of what it was. My mom was always the person in my life that gave me the inspiration, the push, and the drive. So it kind of started out with a brother and sister that was 8 and 10 years younger than me. So you unfortunately had to start becoming the man of the house. So the positive side of taught me a lot of things about being strong, about working through adversity, perseverance, all the things that I watched my mom do to support us, as we were growing up. And then kind of as you go through life, you get to a point in time and you realize that, your masculinity of being tough and I don't cry and, kind of look at me doesn't make you a full person or a full human being on this earth. So that's kind of where
Beyond being taught how to not cry as a man, what is it that a man has to go through that makes them have to feel like they have to be tough and not cry?
if you look at traditionally how we're raised, right? And I even did it to my kids before you kind of realize that's probably the wrong way to do it, right? The little boy is riding his bike, he scrapes his knee, starts crying, and you go over and dad said, "Hey, stop that. You don't need to cry." So it's kind of instilled at us at an early age that that's this is not your response. Your responsibility, is to be tough and to be manly and to get out there and protect your family, which we should, but there has to be the balancing side of it, which is the empathy and the feelings and the caring.
How did your mother encourage you every day? Do you remember your first memory of encouragement from your mother?
It started early. My my mom actually lied on a application, I guess, or whatever it was, and put me in football when I was 5 years old instead of 6. So I was in pee wee football, and you'd come off the field, and maybe you're crying or whatever. She'd turn around, grab my face mask, pull me to her face, and say, "You've got this. Stop your crying and get back on the field." So she taught me again about you don't quit, you just don't. You have to continue on in life, figure out a path.
Well said, well done. And you know, that saying that she said to you, that was like raw, unedited. It wasn't like, oh honey, get back out there, she's just being honest with you, and she's being caring at the same time. That was pretty cool. So you can continue. So, your family, you had to be the man of the house.
Yes, ma'am. So, and then she always had me in sports, right? Trying to keep me out of trouble. So, trying to work the 60, 70 hours she did, still take care of kids, which I did partly, but I couldn't because of, sports a lot of times. And so she kept me active through sports. So that was another grounding, right? It teaches you about being a team member and don't let your team members down. So that was another lesson she was teaching me quietly that, that I didn't realize. So then you get up in life and grounded in faith but drift. You're getting a teenager, and I kind of drifted off a little bit, and then you start coming back to life and you have all these hard lessons and you start thinking like, okay, what's next? I've had failed marriages. I had to confront that in the book. That was probably the hardest thing to do. Is if you're going to write something like that, you either lie or you tell the truth. So
That's true. What was the eureka when you found your final marriage?
you know so part of that was, and I've always said this, there is no balance between business and family. It's not like this 50-50 thing. It's 70-30, then you take it up the other way and it's 30-70. And, you try to find the balance, right? So, when I'm trying to climb my career ladder, you have to go after that next biggest job. Well, that next biggest job is not next door. So, the Boeing plant, right? And that I was doing in Seattle, it was Reebok's first distribution facility, in Boston. So I was on the road. So that doesn't help a marriage, number one. Number two, probably the way I approached it, from my side of the marriage was wrong. A lot of those uh-oh moments when you come through a couple of failed marriages, you're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, something's got to be wrong, right? I look at it as a 10-step program, right? No different than you do in alcohol or drugs. You have to admit you have a problem before you can get help. I had to admit there was something in my life that I needed to fix.
So when you had your marriage, your final marriage, do you sometimes see the same situations coming in and you stop it? Because I want my audience to see that you acknowledge those situations of uphealing or coming to, and you dismiss them and you shut them out when you see them. Is that what you do?
Yeah, you have a choice, right? If you're going to change a bad habit, it takes perseverance because as soon as something goes wrong, you go back in your comfort zone. It's no different than what I was doing in my relationship. I felt very comfortable in my business side. I knew what I was doing. I knew how I could succeed, but my personal side was just really lacking. So when I met my wife, when I met Rhonda, she was a very strong woman, been divorced for 8 years, raising two kids on her own. So I couldn't BS her. She wouldn't let me BS her. She confronted me and saying, "Hey," in fact, there was a point in time she told me, you need to go be by yourself for a little while. You need to go figure yourself out. And when you do, come back." And that's when you had to start really saying, "Okay, what is wrong?" And she would tell me what was wrong. You have to feel, you have to care. Yeah, I know you love me, but you don't show me. So she was very inspirational in making me understand that there's an issue that I need to solve.
And how have you, when did you start this book? When did you start this book and how did, like, tell me a snippet or two from the book and how it's changed your life?
So the story of the book really was trying to let my grandkids and their kids and future generations really understand who I was and what I went through, and to get them to know that, number one, I'm not perfect, so therefore, you're not put on this earth to be perfect, but my faith brought me through it at the end of the day. And I wanted them to also understand the perseverance, the determination, the drive. You don't quit. You keep on a path. You figure out how to make it happen. So it started out as a memoir to them, because when I lost my mom, I felt like I lost our heredity. Right. Well, who was Uncle Charlie? I can't remember. Maybe she told me when I was 2 or 3 or 4 before he passed. So I want something to be able to go down the road, because if you think about it, when we were probably being raised, we would always go to a family reunion. How many family reunions are there nowadays where you get to see everybody? So it just made me start thinking about, what do I want to leave as my legacy, basically, to the generations to come. And I wanted my legacy to be my transformation, who I've become, and then what I'm trying to do today.
What do you do to develop yourself every day or every minute? Like when you are like within family, how do you create? Because you are the navigator, you create the scenario for your immediate family. How does that work out?
Well, first, I have to wake up every morning and thank God that I'm still on the earth, because at 67 years old, I'm on a downhill run. So I'm trying to make sure that I slow it down as much as I can. So I stop and thank him for being here today. And my wife is really good about kind of saying, you got to flip a switch. Like when I come in from work, being in construction, let's face it, we're a bunch of tough, old, rugged guys, at least think we are. And we got to push to get something done. So if I come in with the wrong attitude, she'll say, "You need to back out. I'm not your employee." So one, she reminds me that I need to change my tune a little bit. And the second is to always remember that I don't have to be a bull in a china closet. because when you were raised the way I was, you are a bull in a china closet. You're either with me or get out of my way because I'm going to run over you. So my transition in life, probably 20 years into my construction career, was understanding that too. Is if you're going to be a leader of men and you're going to transform into an executive, you need to start understanding about caring about people. So I started asking questions, right? Leaders basically don't direct, they ask a bunch of questions. Then they gather the information, disseminate it, try to teach and preach and get people on the same thing. So there was a bunch of transformation that had to happen, for me personally.
Was it encouragement, leadership, like in midway? Because you said 20 years ago it was like run over you or something of that sort.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Yeah,
And
it was hard. I had to go to the owner of a company it's now like a $2.2 billion company. But when I first hired all of them, he was on like 16 million. So I was like the first Texas employee because he was from Ohio. And I remember it was a couple things he taught me. One about intimidation, right? I remember I was sitting in a trailer with Reebok's vice president at the time because we were building their first big warehouse up in Boston, and it was the superintendent for the project. And man, it kind of got heated. Superintendent grabbed a chair, threw it out the window. And I'm kind of going, whoa, because I'm like a 26-year-old young man, right? So I called him. I said, man, I'm not sure to handle it. And this is the worldly advice, which I appreciate him giving me. He said, Victor, do you put your pants on one leg at a time? I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, do you think they put their pants on one leg at a time? I said, yes, sir, they do. He said, okay, they ain't no different than you. He said, pack it up, get your butt back in there. He said, there is no man that should intimidate you on this earth. He said, now you be reasonable, you negotiate, you be fair, but get your butt back in the trailer. So that was kind of that worldly knowledge of how you start becoming who you are. And then from there, 20 years later, where I was kind of going on the story, is he sent me to a leadership school for about a week. And he said, Victor, you're going to have to change your ways if you're going to become an executive within my company. And, I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, you think you're okay. I've been successful, been making him money, right? So you get in there and they do 10 batteries, right? They're all 360s and you hear all the positive things, right? Yeah, I'd follow Victor anyway. I'd march up the hill with him, Then you hear the other ones. Then you start hearing little Hitler, doesn't listen to a word I say. I really wish he'd shut his mouth and so there's things like that. So you have a turning point in your life at that point in time. They're either liars or you have to confront the situation and change. So that's where my business side of my life started changing.
did you see things from a mile away when you started to notice that shift, or did you always have that gift embedded in you through your mother?
I could see a lot of things. I still to today, at one point in time, I was over 2,500 people. So you start learning people pretty good. When they look you in the eye, they don't look you in the eye, shake your hand, don't shake your hand. Right. So I can see a lot of things like that. But what's hard is to look yourself in the mirror. So I had a mentor that told me, turn yourself inside out. And I never could understand what he's talking about. But what he's trying to do is he's trying to make you look at who you are as a person, as a human being. Do you really like what you see? Is this who you really want to be? So he helped me a lot too in my transition to, stop being so hard and cold.
And I read, I believe you said you're an eighth generation rancher.
Eighth generation Texan. We were one of the original 300 settlers that Stephen F. Austin gave land grants to in 1842.
Wow, that is amazing. And tell me more about who this person is and how the odds are very slim that I would be talking to you.
It's kind of funny because the way I look at things is the ranch is a hub. And I'm not meaning that as it's a hub because of my heredity. It's a hub because that's where our giving comes from. That's where our mission of the ranch is. Over the past 3 years, we've donated over 64 hunts to combat veterans, to terminally ill kids, and to Christian children's groups. So that's our hub. So the book, anything I would speak to, like you on a podcast or anything else, to me is a funnel trying to channel down to the hub, which is the more people that I get on the ranch, because we're a hunting ranch, we're an outfitter. The more people I get on the ranch that, purchase our animals and our hunts gives me more ability to basically give back.
How many acres is it?
So we hunt on 1,600. We actually own two ranches. It's about 450 total, but the total
How
acreage
big
that we
is
hunt on.
that?
So 1 mile by 1 mile square is 640 acres, or that's what they call a section.
Okay. And how many acres you have again? I'm sorry.
So we own two ranches at around 450, but we hunt together on 1,600. So that would be about 2.5 miles square by 2.5 miles square.
Wow. That's I mean, once it's beyond one, I think it's huge. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's a lot of area, like do you like if you were to say to someone who is interested in going hunting, how would you start it? How would step one, what would be the steps to do it with your family or a friend or just anybody?
One, and thank you for bringing that up because hunters are the biggest conservationists in the world. It's not somebody you pay money to that's going to advertise how bad hunters are. It's the money we spend goes back to conservation. I'm going to give you just an example on the ranch. We have two species of animals on the ranch that are extinct in their native land. If it wasn't for hunters, if it wasn't for us, they would be extinct. So that's part of our conservation effort. My wife and I actually here in 2 weeks are going back to Africa. My wife is my huntress. She hunts with me. The only reason why there's animals in Africa is because the hunters bring in money. The outfitter then uses part of that money for their anti-poaching program. There is no anti-poaching program run by the government. It is run by the outfitters themselves. So there's things people don't kind of understand. So thank you for letting me get that out. The direct question is, my uncle, when I was 13 years old, is the one that got me into hunting. And it's not about the killing. That's not what this is about, right? This is about appreciation of wildlife. It's like my wife. Every harvest she has, she's going to say a prayer. She's going to thank God basically for giving this animal on our earth, and it's our responsibility to make sure there are more of them, so we don't go out and shoot everything and kill them all. Just like on the ranch right now, we grow our animals. We make sure the production is there. We're making sure they're healthy. We want to make sure they're here for my kids, their kids, right? So just grab somebody, have a conversation about hunting with a true hunter, and they'll tell you what it's really like to be a hunter, not a killer.
Well said. And tell me, like, what is your denomination or religious beliefs,
So,
spiritual?
so I was raised Lutheran.
Mhm.
Um, we've been kind of in non-denominational churches, through the years. Tell you my strengths and my weaknesses as we talk. One of my weaknesses is to go to church and watch somebody do something that they say they didn't do. So churches sometimes get me a little upset, to be able to go watch the hypocrites that are in there. I'm kind of like I said before, I'm kind of more one of those kind of guys. Show me, don't tell me. Talk is cheap, right? Let's put some reality in what you do. My favorite saying is toes and tongues. If your mouth is wagging, your toes better be following. So those are more the lessons that I kind of learned. So we're non-denominational. Because of the hunting operation, we don't necessarily get to the church as much as we want to because we have hunters a lot of times through the weekend. And my wife's a culinary teacher, so she's the cook. So that's the reason why I have to watch my weight all the time because of her. But that's really it. I've always believed in know what the Bible says, know what you're supposed to do in life. If you understand those 10 things that were carved out of stone, you'll probably be okay.
Do you think that it's necessary to read the whole Bible or get at least interpret the whole Bible in your entire
I
lifetime
don't
span?
I don't think so. I mean,
Oh,
I know my brother-in-law is extremely spiritual and he goes to Bible study all the time and he tells me about passages and all that. I can tell you maybe three or four. I know what my
me
uprooting
too.
was. I went through the whole Bible through 6 years of church school. So I know what it is, but I can't quote it. So I think you have to have a basis. That would be like saying, let's go build this building. Well, where's the blueprints? Well, just figure it out yourself, right? I think you have to have a map, right? I can get to California. You and I can both get to California. If I got a map, I'm probably going to beat you, you know? So I think it's basics that you have to at least understand some basics, right? And it is pretty basic, right? Do unto others, right? Read the 10 things you're supposed to do, believe in God, and there's a higher being. I think it's pretty simple. The rest is just kind of follow the blueprint.
And where do you see, what do you want your family to interpret with this video? I want you to, because this is going to be your video after this. So where do you see yourself going in the future, and what do you want your family to interpret, and what do you have to say for your grandkids?
One is the legacy I'm leaving is not the ranch. The legacy I'm leaving is the giving back. We were not put on this earth to take. We were put on this earth to give back and to help. So I want them to understand that giving is a part of who I've become, what the ranch is about, and they need to remember that going forward. Then the next part of it is transformation. Life is about transformation. If you're not consistently evolving, you're falling back. And that doesn't mean anything like technology. This just means like you have to evolve, right? If you see a problem, go solve it, hit it head on, because everybody wants to shy away, right? In construction, this is one of my other favorite terms, right? Everybody wants to run away from a fire. Only firefighters run into the fire. You got to be a firefighter. You have to run into the problem. You have to solve the problem, because if you throw it in a closet and it keeps stacking up, at some point in time, you can't throw any more in. And guess what happens? It comes back on you. And that's where suicide rates, get higher, and, et cetera, et cetera.
Did you ever feel like, you felt any negative thoughts? And even if you didn't want to talk about that, have you ever seen or witnessed someone within your camp get suicidal because of those situations?
I have, and I'm not going to go into depth because I don't want to give it away.
Understood.
But
Understood.
but within our family, yes. And luckily, we were able to listen. And that's back to where we talked about God gave you two ears and one mouth, right? Listen a little bit. I heard something. And because of I heard something, started asking a bunch of questions. And I think I don't think, I know we avoided a problem.
The scary thing, it's not that some parents ignore the problem, but or however, but some just they don't believe that this would happen, and it happened. So, what positive things would you say, um what suggestions would you use from what you learned in your situation?
One is a parent needs to be a parent. I'm seeing way too many things, nowadays where, oh, the school's going to take care of. No, that's your job. That's not the school's job. And I'm focusing in on that because my wife is a 35-year educator. And she comes back and tells me all the time, she tries to call the parent, said, hey, Sophie, whatever, is acting up. And, the words out of their mouth is, well, did you ask them what was wrong? Because it has to be them. It can't be my child. Your child is not perfect, and it's your job to teach them responsibility. We're in a little town right now. So my wife retired. She was in a big school district. She was part of 4,000 students.
Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah,
Congratulations.
that was a success story. I had to push her back to work. No, I'm kidding. So in the little town that we're at, little 3,500 town, when she retired, something came up, don't know why, and she decided to apply. So she's in this little small town teaching what she did before. She comes home now, and it's like the kids. I look at the text. Oh, Miss, they call her Miss Brett. Miss Brett. Oh, we love you. How does this look on me? It's a total environment. You know what part of the thing is? There's still corporal punishment in this school. There's still consequences for this school. The kids, when they come in, lock their phones up and are not allowed to have them until they
Good,
come back.
good.
I really believe the basics of how we were probably raised is disappearing. And I'm sorry, there is consequences for your actions. Because I remember if I acted up, it was really simple. My coach got my butt, the principal got my butt, and I got home and my parent got my butt. My mom got my butt. So I knew what consequences were. I knew that yes or no could be the right answer. I had to make that right decision.
Well said. Oh my God. And if you had to give a piece of advice to an entrepreneur out there, what would it be?
It is going to be a struggle. It's going to be hard. People are going to tell you can't do it. You're going to get rejected 50,000 times, but you have to believe. If you look at any success story, it's not that I was a millionaire. It was I failed, I failed, I failed, and here I am. But I also believe that part of that success is not about you personally. So in other words, I believe if you're after your ambition because of selfish reasons, it might not last too long. If you're after this ambition because there's an underlying thing and you've got some things you want to help with and whatever, I think you've got a greater chance for success than just because it's about me.
Well said. And lastly, how can the people reach you?
Oh, well, thank you. So if you you can Google breading Texan Ranch, or it's breadingtexanranch.com. You can Google my name, Victor Breading. Our DBA for the ranch is B-Tex. Same thing. You Google and it'll let you will do it. Our book is The Man That I Would Become, on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and any of the other publications that you can see. And I'll put a plug in. We've got a series actually starting up on My Outdoor TV. It's going to be called The Manage Wild Texas, and it's going to be 5 episodes about the ranch. So if it's a streaming channel, so if y'all would go help and look at the streaming, there's a real good possibility maybe the Sportsman channel will pick it up next year, and we'll actually have a series on the Sportsman channel.
God bless you. Like seriously, God bless you, Victor. And I just wanted to say, I hope that y'all pick this up. I hope you pick up the book, and I just hope nothing but blessings. So stay on the line. Thank you guys for joining my show today. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys another time. Bye.